And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Larry, and we're going to be discussing Only Murders in the Building, episode number 8, Fan Fiction. Very appropriate title for this episode because we got to meet fans, the super fans, Sam and the Arconians, as they call themselves. It's been a hell of a series. Loved everything about it. And this episode, the brilliance of this episode is the commentary on fandom we got a series that's about podcasting, and now we have the commentary on the communities that rise up around pop culture, popular podcast shows, etc. And just the way it all plays out, it's like inside baseball. That you're getting the behind the scenes stuff as well. Just the fans and the Arconians and that whole subplot. How did you guys feel about that? I thought it was really cool.
I loved it. It legit went into how fandom kind of sparses themselves throughout characters within, shows or podcasts or everything, because there were different ones, and I called them a Putnik, or the ones that were all about Oliver or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's like different names for them. Like some of them were huge Oliver fans, and I don't remember what they called the Mabel.
That's classic Oliver Mabel banter. Like that.
Yeah, it's. They all kind of identified with one of the characters, which everyone does. In a successful, whether it's a podcast or whether it's television or anything else, you gravitate towards normally one character more than all the others. So to see it kind of play out like that, like you said, kind of like a behind the scenes thing that's not really behind the scenes, but it is true. Like that kind of stuff happens. So to see it portrayed that way was very... felt too real. It felt very because I've been to a lot of conventions and those things happen. Like that is a 100% thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I do love how meta this episode was in that way. And it's like not only is it a comment on fandom and podcasts in general, but it's also kind of a throwback to the first episode in a way, because they were those fans. They started off as these super fans until they started their own podcast. It's why the whole group is together. But yeah, it was kind of a fun episode. It was good seeing like who the type of people that are actually listening to their podcast. Like, what do we have an update on what their number of viewers are at this moment? Like how many people are actually listening?
They didn't say in this episode. I was looking for that. Clearly it's getting some popularity. But no, I don't recall hearing that.
They said at the end of the previous episode, not the one that just aired, but the previous one, as they were looking at it, they had just posted it that morning, and it was already at like 1,500 views or downloads. Yeah. So it's growing quickly. So I imagine that this is, several days later, and now my guess would be like 10,000. Just like literally just throwing out a rough guesstimate based on the growth it had like overnight after being mentioned on Fallon.
Yeah, because that's a big deal, and you imagine that would attract a lot of people, and that growth wouldn't stop because so many people watch Fallon. I love the fact that Oliver was disgusted with them, but craved the attention at the same time.
Yeah. That was exactly how he portrayed it. You're right. Yeah, I love these guys. The Teddy, we left last week with a cliffhanger because Theo had Oliver and Mabel, and in this episode they wrapped that up pretty quickly in terms of, okay, where's that kidnapping going to go? And they Teddy approaches them and says, look, he sort of hints that we don't Tim Kona, we don't know what happened, who cares? But yes, we're involved in all this shit. You're going to wrap up the podcast. You're going to wrap up this series tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And that's how it's going to be, or there's going to be consequences. And that's sort of the timeline throughout the whole episode. They have till the morning to figure out what they're going to do. And they make the decision, well, we're going to try and solve the case and, take down Teddy and Theo. And that's sort of the journey of the episode.
Yeah. And according to what they found, they pointed the finger in the wrong direction, but they also pointed the finger at Sting. So they could still create another episode where they're just like, you know what? They were guilty of all these things. However, this is who the real murderer is, or, whatever.
And that's sort of how we're left. Yeah, 100% how we're left at the end, where it's like, yeah, they're bad in all these ways, but nah, there's more going on.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I'll go ahead, Larry, because I was going to switch gears to a different.
Like, well, I was just saying, like, yeah, they're still, like you said, they're still bad, and they should still definitely be in prison because, they are still responsible for one murder, and there is still proof that they're grave robbers. So they're not 100% exonerated, but they are exonerated potentially of Tim Kono's murder. And I wonder where that leaves them next episode.
Well, yeah, because they have an alibi, but they've also, all their fans are basically saying that there's multiple people who could have helped. Like, this isn't just a one-person job. Somebody had to do this, and somebody pulled the fire alarm. Somebody was up here at this time. So Teddy and Theo could still 100% be involved, but there's somebody else involved too. And I was getting the vibe that I don't remember the girlfriend's name.
Jan.
Holly from Jan. I was going to say Holly from The Office, but that Jan seems like she's involved because she keeps her timing of getting with Brazos. It feels weird. It also feels like she's trying to steer him away from that. So it feels like she's involved. And now towards the end of the episode, it looks like she was killed. So I don't know who it is that's involved or how many people are involved, but this is becoming quite extensive because they talk about poisoning. Did he poison himself? Did somebody poison him? Like, someone shot him after he was poisoned. So it's one of those things that, did they try to make it look like a suicide after they poisoned him? Or did he poison himself and then somebody was like pissed off and saw him and came in and shot him while he was laying on the ground? Like, I have a lot of questions.
Remember, the cat was poisoned, they believe, and so was Oliver's dog. So yeah, poison is clearly the main instrument of killing. I just have to get this in up. Brazos is Brazos is our safe word. That was the best.
Yeah, and she was an interesting character too, which is why it looks like she's dead, and
I'm not sure she is. I only say that I've read a couple of reviews, and people are speculating she might not be, but she could be.
Right. Yeah, I was wondering that too. Like, because she may be alive next episode, and but if she is or if she isn't, like, clearly it seems like someone was trying to silence her. Like, maybe, like Spencer said, like she was like someone forced her to sort of throw them in the wrong direction, and was using her to gather information about where they are in their little investigation, and like she decided to maybe stop playing ball with that person, and they shot her. At least that's my best guess at what happened to her.
That's a common thing because there's a lot of movies that do that. Like, She's All That? Dating Rachel Cook, and then by the end of it, he really falls in love with her. So she could have been, used as a pawn to try and steer them in the wrong direction. But like you said, Larry, she didn't want to play ball with them anymore because she actually started to like him. And so now they're trying to, silence her because of that. But where the wound was, it looked like a kidney. It looked like off to the side, but, the blood could have been permeating from the front and carried over, or, it's very hard to tell where her injury is. She's face down. It's hard to tell, but it could be, she could be dead, or old Hayden could have found her quick enough to where he was able to get her help in time.
Well, all we know is those pizza rolls go great with gut milk. That was another great line. There were so many one-liners. I was just dying this whole episode.
And right after they started talking shit about her pizza rolls, it was like they weren't that
they're
good.
Dry.
I love the comeback. You ate 16 of those pizza rolls.
Yeah, he has to go out to get dip. That was great. I enjoyed how each character plays to who they are, and we get a really cool sequence where they bring in the super fans, and Oliver in order to lay out how he thinks things played out, he uses these fans to essentially construct a stage play. And they present it, and it's just little things like that. I'm just like, oh, that's just a cool idea and very well executed.
Well, and I thought it was funny too, because after seeing the stage play and after knowing that's how they presented the podcast, I was like, there is no way that's how it happened. Like, they're putting all these things together based off of Theo, based off of Oliver getting punched in the gut. Like, he tied his whole trauma into a murder case that they have zero evidence for.
Yeah, like none. What do you think? Jan kept bringing up Cat Guy. So Spencer, your theory that maybe she's in on this, or if she is, if she isn't, we're clearly they're trying to point towards Cat Guy. He's a part of this in some way, shape, or form. I think we know his cat was poisoned, or we assume it was. I think that's what his theory was. They got a piece of the cat in their freezer. They were going to run tests on it or whatever. Any thoughts on Cat Guy? Because I think he's coming back in some way in the next couple episodes.
He might be a serial killer.
I mean, shit.
He's got like a Dahmer. He's got a. I'm trying to think of somebody. People. Not Dahmer. Dahmer didn't poison people, but.
Like, he paid off Jan because he wanted them to know it was him. But it's I don't think it's seriously Cat Guy, though. I think he's going to be played for comedy next episode, or at least that's my thought. Like, because Jan was shot. Because at first I was legitimately getting suspicious of the guy because she kept bringing it up that maybe he played some hand in this, before I was suspicious that Jan was purposely pushing them in the wrong direction. But I think that Brazos is gonna, he's gonna be barking up that tree now, because he's gonna think that, oh, it's Cat Guy. He's responsible for, he went after Jan, and I think that's how they're gonna pull him back into maybe next episode for maybe a bit or two.
You're probably right. How did you feel about the commentary of him bringing his girlfriend into the group? Like, because I mean, that's such a thing in music bands, and not just bands, but in different entertainment things, where you have a group that's together, they're creating a product of a show or whatever it is, music, and then somebody falls in love, they bring their significant other into the group and want that person to be a part of the group. And it was a very well done sort of commentary on that. And I loved, when Oliver kept taking little shots at her and she didn't hear what he was saying. He was whispering it, but I don't know. Yet again, another thing that I thought, in a 30-minute show, they packed so much stuff in there. But yeah, how'd y'all feel about that?
She's the Yoko, man.
Well, yeah, exactly.
They did that real well. Like, she did all the little annoying things that you have happen in that situation. She started calling it our investigation, and she was already reading through their stuff without the three of them, voting on whether they should bring her into the group. And, like, she just embedded herself in there. Nobody asked or anything. She was default a part of the group, and I love that cascaded too. While Mabel was talking shit about the situation, she brought in, I can't remember the guy's actual
Oscar.
name. Yeah, she brought in Oscar.
Tie-dye guy.
Yeah, so that made her a hypocrite, and that kind of thing happens in these like you said, in bands and things as well. Like, one person will bring a person, and someone else is like, well, what about my friend so-and-so? So it cascaded in a very realistic way, and, just the whole dynamic was very funny.
The Detective Williams returns for a couple scenes. Great as it's funny as hell. I love when Charles is trying to talk in code. And just how that failed miserably, and obviously the big reveal at the end when they find out that Tim Kono was poisoned, and the gunshot was after the fact, after his death. So clearly, it appears that it wasn't the way that they portrayed it in the podcast. So yeah, all that was really, done well as well.
like you said, when I was dying so bad, he was like, "That's not how cops talk." Just no.
That was the best. I want to see more of those three hanging out. Well, doing an investigation. The detective, Charles and Oscar, because that was just a good dynamic. Just those two being the goofballs that they are, and her being, sort of the straight man in the conversation. And
the comedy chops of everybody. Like everyone in this show is funny. You know what I mean? Like everyone does such a great job of comedy, but it's different styles of comedy. Like there's different like Detective Williams is very, sort of edgy, very profane laden style comedy. And then you have, like you were saying about Oliver earlier, Oliver he's disgusted by these people, but at the same time he craves that attention and just sort of how he plays it. And then of course, Mabel working with these old guys, and there's sort of the generational aspect there. And then Oscar he's funny too, but it's very subtle. Like he's not there's no comedy lines or anything with his character. It's just there's little subtle things that are humorous.
I think that's how him and Mabel, their dynamic has worked in this show. It's like the little one-liners, and they do it with a straight face, so it's hard to tell whether or not they're taking a dig, but it always is funny. And like you said, Oliver, it's such that it's a physical comedy. He's too old to be throwing himself on the ground like he used to, but Martin Short, his face, it's still a very physical comedy, and it makes Martin Short is my favorite. It's every face he makes, all the little digs, and then when somebody overhears him, he's like, "What?" And he's got that surprised face. Like I love it.
Like a little off topic, but I think we finally have our segue for the Yard Dogs to come back with this whole poison angle.
Oh shit! You might be right. Yeah,
because it could be a plant-based poison.
God, I hope so. That would, but yeah, absolutely, I could see that happening. Man, there's only 2 left, man. It feels like there's not enough time to wrap this up. But like we said, we are guaranteed a second season, so there's that.
Yeah, so it doesn't wrap up completely.
I could just see season 2. There's got to be that scene where they need information for something, and they have to go to a prison to meet with Teddy. And Teddy walks out, and they have a conversation about a case. I mean, that stuff has to happen.
I would imagine for season 2, like maybe it's a different building, but someone reaches out to them because they're a true crime podcast that actually solved a damn crime for once. Like maybe it's in a nearby building, and we get this other cast of characters as well as our 3 main characters involved in it. But it's a little harder because maybe they're actually famous now, so people know that if they're there, they're investigating or they're trying to do this podcast.
Yeah, hopefully they're able to get it out next year. I didn't hear any production dates, and of course, anyone following the news, Hollywood's on the verge of another strike, so yeah, we'll see. It may be longer than a year. We'll see. But anything? I think I went through everything. Yeah. Anything else regarding this episode of Only Murders?
I don't think I have anything else. Like I said, it's one of those shows that I have such a fun time watching that there isn't a whole lot of parts of it that I don't enjoy. So, the comedy is, I love it. The way that they portray it, all the little one-liners, all the everything. It's great.
Absolutely. And it's a solid mystery on top of that, so it's hard to ask for more from a show.
Yeah, great show. 2 episodes left. We are covering both episodes, and I'm sure we'll be doing season 2 as well. If you're not hit the sub button, please do so. Leave a comment. We appreciate those. And check out some of the other stuff on the channel. Like I said, we're doing Big Sky, American Horror Story, a lot of stuff coming up in November. Appreciate everyone listening, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.